Each year, the Atlantic Institute holds a global convening. It's our flagship event, and it is the entry point for new fellows who have graduated in the previous year to come into the global community.
It's an opportunity for fellows and staff to get to know about each program and to connect about their work as well, all on this journey to address and shift global inequalities.
Welcome to Oxford. You and you are all now part of the story of this legendary city.
The convening held in 2023 was the third convening of its kind, the first being held in 2019 at Rhodes House, the second because of COVID in 2022 in Thailand.
Now we're over a year out of the restrictive phase of the pandemic. We were able to talk more about issues around inequity rather than focus on rejuvenation, which is what we did in 2022.
There's something really magical about the Atlantic Fellows community.
I get emotional to seeing the people that have grown out of ideas, each of the 7 fellowships that you come from, but they're all fundamentally rooted in the values that Chuck, Atlantic, and all of you share.
As with all convenings, we make sure that we include the voices and experiences and perspectives of fellows. We invite them to be part of a fellow focus group, which co-designs the convening and actually comes up with the theme every single year. This year, we had a lot more panels, we had a lot more dialogue. Woven into our programming was a desire from our fellow focus group to center the conversations around this theme of stepping in and stepping up. Stepping into discomfort and challenging conversations, and then stepping up to take action.
We are waking up the Africa Union. When I say we, I mean the civil society in Africa.
Trying to reconcile the challenges of the West and Western philosophy and how that interacts with indigenous peoples.
When we think about the oil industry, when we think about all these massive corporations that are polluting the planet, who don't have a vested interest in a circular economy because there's less profit to be made.
It's about pausing and reflecting and really paying attention to what happened on this journey. How did I get here? Where do I still need to go? What happened on this journey?
Fellows come from the 7 Atlantic programs to Oxford to participate in the global convening in order to connect with each other, to establish relationships, and also to find out what it means to be part of the global community. This convening marks the official start of your lifelong journey to tackle inequities as part of this global community. This year we were honoured to hold the convening in a new Rhodes House, a house that's been renovated, supported by Atlantic Philanthropies, with a new conference centre, and part of those renovations or refurbishments were for the Atlantic Fellows community. We acknowledge that Rhodes House is problematic for some of our fellows. The house is now more reflective of the diversity, not only of the Rhodes Scholar community, but importantly of the Atlantic Fellows community, and we're incredibly proud of that. It is one part of the obligations that the Institute has to be part of a decolonising agenda alongside of leadership at Rhodes Trust.
Because we have returned to Rhodes House and because we are located in Oxford and in England, it was imperative that we look at the history of Cecil John Rhodes, we look at colonization, and we look at how colonization has contributed to all kinds of inequities across the world.
It seems appropriate that we gather here in a city that trained colonial officers to go out to every corner of this planet and begin causing many of the world's problems.
I've been struggling, really, deeply struggling with what it means to be here.
We had a session focused on Britain, colonization, and how it has contributed to inequity, featuring people from the country who've had experiences of living with the legacy of colonization.
Today, in the 21st century, because of the work of historians in this country, in the Caribbean, North America, and elsewhere, we are increasingly aware of the vast forced migration known as the transatlantic slave trade, through which Britain transported around 3.5 million Africans into bondage. That vast demographic reordering of the world and its economic and ideological legacy is something that Britain is only now beginning to fully recognise and slowly, perhaps, beginning to come to terms with.
In the 19th century, the Trevelyan family were really at the intersection of colonialism and empire. What was not well known, or indeed documented, was the fact that the Trevelyans, at the height of having this privileged position, were also absentee slave owners in the Caribbean island of Grenada.
For some of us, actually, listening to you was a very complicated exercise. Physically in my body, I felt such tightness in my neck.
We have 842 fellows from more than 80 countries, each of whom has a different perspective and a different experience and a different lens on the world. And one of the challenges for the Institute is how we respond to that and lift up voices that aren't normally lifted up without excluding others.
We're hoping that what you have learned here, some can be discomforting, but some could be joyous. May that actually lead you to your communities.
What we're asking fellows to do and all the participants to do is suspend their own thinking and knowledge around these topics and hear from people who are working perhaps in a very different way, who are exploring the topic from a different angle, because we feel that it's only upon understanding different perspectives that you'll be able to enhance and deepen your work, and more importantly, build solidarity around global justice. Another thing that we do in programming is we try to lift transversal topics. So public health is something that we all experience in different ways from our different locations. And it's very important because it's a marker of how different people can access health and other services for their well-being. So our panel on public health looked at different approaches to enhancing well-being for particularly marginalized or othered communities.
If we for one moment think that we're going to move the dial on health inequalities by being in an echo chamber, we've completely missed the point. We need to mobilize business and industry. We need to move the innovation landscape.
The panel on Africa was really about how are fellows in our community stepping in and stepping up to meet the challenges of inequality that are particular to Africa as a continent.
All external forces has an agenda to participate in Africa for their own gain, especially that East Africa corridor for the Red Sea and the global trade. So we need to wake up, we need to use our advantage, and we need to have our resources for the benefit of the continent.
One of the most celebrated sessions that we held was a session focused on the XR space, or the extended reality space, and how extended realities can actually advance justice. We were really honored to have community representatives from Mexico showcasing their film Gawi, which looks at how the virtual reality space or the extended reality space can actually counter dominant narratives about a people and their well-being, their lives, and capture that in a way that is really experiential for those who get to undertake or be part of the XR experience that is now embedded into Rhodes House and much of our programming.
I really enjoyed the comment of how virtual reality or extended reality can be also a platform for health, for therapy, for different ways of entertainment, but it needs to come at a very slow pace, or at a pace at least that is defined by them and by the community. And this is just like a dream come true to see them next to me. Gracias.
Que nosotros como humanos pues no estamos respetando la naturaleza, no estamos respetando uno mismo, pues, para vivir para más allá del futuro de los nietos, de la familia, todos los que vienen.
We're trying to tell stories of peoples whose lives we need to understand through the experiences, not always the words.
Whoever studied any economics in your life, just raise your hand.
We also recognize that one of the root causes of inequality is economic disparity, capitalism, and how they create conditions of poverty for particular groups of people. And so we were really excited to have Kate Raworth, who's a recognized figure across the globe, for offering a new kind of narrative around economic justice through what she calls the donut economics.
We need to reimagine the shape of progress. It's not that Western imposed idea of endless growth.
The bigger countries, they're like instructing us to reduce our carbon footprints. They're actually the ones using our savings in carbon footprints. I think we need to do something about it.
Fellows' feedback is so important to the work that the Institute does, and that's because we put fellows first, last and always in the design of everything we offer this community. We've received some powerful feedback about the life-changing impact that the convening, I'd say less the convening and more the connection with the community, has had on fellows' lives.
I've loved it. I just love meeting new people and being amongst greatness in a way, because everyone's just doing so many exciting things, with their projects.
It's amazing, it's fantastic. Suddenly to me seems like the world has become this big.
It's really the eye-opening conference for me.
Really good conversations as well. Fellows from a different program with different domain expertise. It's been great learning from them.
We share so many kind of commonalities in experience, but then so many differences, and people are just thinking outside of the box and so innovative and creative in this space. Kind of just blows me away. So I think we can take a lot and learn from each other.
My mind is already working around building bridges across different programs.
So I strongly believe that after this program, I'll have more connections, and in that way I'll be able to share with the world the narrative from the deaf perspective.
Atlantic Fellows are a microcosm of society, of the world. I was struck by how we are both victims of some of the difficult conditions that we all come from, but also how we have a special privilege in that we can do things differently.
I come from a wounded country. I come from a wounded continent. And I come from a wounded society. But it's a society that is on a journey. It is not a journey of rediscovery. It is a journey of reclamation.
We can rise above the limitations of identity, gender, and all the other identity markers to think about global solidarity and to actually be supported to build that together.
We have shared experiences that I would call really the core of this radical solidarity, that we are not against each other. This diversity of experience, which do not cancel each other, but rather strengthen each other, should be really leveraged.
We can't change the past, but we can change the future by changing what we do today. Let's make the future.
We don't have to retreat into difference. We can actually start to do the work of building the global solidarity that the world calls for and needs at this point of our history.
This is the third global convening, and we are now seeing the arc of change as a result of those global convenings. For example, out of the 2019 global convening, many of the fellows have been involved in collaboration projects and have been recipients of grants. Most of the thematic gatherings have come out of fellow connections in the 2019 global convening and the Thailand convening last year. What's really critical is that fellows do not leave the global convening and think that it ends there, that this is the door opening, this is but a starting point for a lifelong community to be formed. and that each relationship matters. It's not about suddenly you're part of a big global community. It's one relationship at a time.
Connection is the heartbeat, is the main goal of this convening. Our hope is that weeks, days, months after the convening, fellows are continuing to touch base, are thinking together about the issues that they're experiencing in their own countries, but also drawing from the wealth of knowledge and experience that exists in this global community to enhance whatever it is that they're trying to do. So we're looking forward to seeing applications for grants. We're looking forward to seeing applications to have thematic gatherings that focus on key subjects and a host of other connections and ongoing actions and activities that build on the moment that we all shared together in July.
It's